You think you know every Harry Potter plot hole? The missed thestrals, the marauding map mistakes, the time travel headaches? Think again, because buried under the big ones are the quiet disasters, the ones that slipped right past even the die-hard fans. The moments where the logic of the wizarding world quietly packs its trunk, grabs a broom, and flies off without explanation. Why James and Lily weren't their own secret keepers. The Fidelius charm hides a secret within the soul of one chosen person, the secret keeper. That person is the only one capable of revealing the location protected by the spell. When the Potters used the charm, they chose Peter Pettigrew instead of themselves. The books never explain why they didn't just keep their own secret. Nothing in canon prevents it. The charm doesn't forbid self-keeping, and there's no magical rule stating it must be someone else. This means the Potters could have easily become their own secret keepers and avoided betrayal altogether. Instead, they entrusted their lives to the least trustworthy man in Britain, which, given the result, was not the brightest move in wizarding history. The trace problem at Privet Drive. The Ministry of Magic monitors underage wizards through an enchantment called the Trace, which detects when magic is performed near them. The flaw? It can't tell who cast the spell, only where it happened. When Dobby levitates a cake in Chamber of Secrets, the Ministry assumes Harry did it because he's the only wizard living at that address. Yet, in Order of the Phoenix, members of the Order openly use spells at Privet Drive to pack Harry's belongings, and the Trace conveniently forgets to tattle. The system that punished Harry for something he didn't do suddenly becomes blind to Tonks whipping her wand around like a house elf on caffeine. This inconsistency suggests the Trace works selectively, or more likely that Rowling didn't fully map out its mechanics at the time. Why the trio didn't multiply food. In Deathly Hallows, Hermione clearly states that food cannot be conjured from nothing, but it can be multiplied or summoned from elsewhere. By that logic, the trio could have multiplied what little food they had instead of starving through half the book. Multiplying food is a legitimate magical practice proven during the Great Hall feasts. The only explanation given is none. Not even Hermione, a walking encyclopedia of spells, brings it up. Maybe multiplied bread tastes like disappointment, or maybe Rowling didn't want her heroes well-fed and logical. Either way, it's a hole wide enough to drive a night bus through. Why Harry didn't see thestrals earlier. Thestrals, the skeletal horses that pull the Hogwarts carriages, are visible only to those who have witnessed and accepted death. Harry first sees them in Order of the Phoenix after Cedric Diggory's death. The issue? He saw his mother die as a baby. According to the books, that should qualify. Rowling later patched this by explaining that a person must understand death to see thestrals. Apparently, infants don't count because they can't process trauma between crying sessions. The second inconsistency comes when Harry fails to see them right after Cedric's death, but suddenly notices them months later. Rowling claimed the reality hadn't sunk in, yet. It's a tidy emotional explanation, but one that feels suspiciously like an author retrofitting rules after realizing her death horses broke the timeline. Fred and George missing Peter Pettigrew on the Marauders map. The Marauders map tracks every person in Hogwarts, name, location, and all. Fred and George owned it for years and gave it to Harry, yet somehow missed a man named Peter Pettigrew sleeping in Ron's bed every night. Even by Weasley standards, that's some next-level obliviousness. The only in-world fix comes from a fan theory suggesting that only the original Marauders could see each other's names on the map. Unfortunately, Rowling never confirmed it. Canonically, the map shows everyone. So yes, the twins apparently thought their brother had an imaginary adult roommate named Peter and just didn't care. Why Sirius didn't use Polyjuice potion. After escaping Azkaban, Sirius Black hides out at Grimmauld Place but risks exposure whenever he leaves. He can transform into a large black dog. Helpful, but not exactly subtle when half of Britain is on the lookout for a large black dog. Polyjuice potion could have made him look like anyone. The ingredients aren't impossible to get. His friends literally brewed it in a school bathroom at age 12. Sirius also had access to Order members like Snape and Dumbledore who could have helped. So why didn't he use it? The only reasoning is character-based. Sirius was arrogant, reckless, and didn't take orders well. Basically the kind of man who believes shape-shifting into a Labrador is a stealth strategy. Logic says potion. Personality says, nah, dog form's fine. Why the Ministry never used Veritaserum. Veritaserum is a powerful truth potion that forces the drinker to answer questions honestly. The Ministry of Magic owns it, regulates it, and, apparently, completely forgets it exists during every major trial. After the First Wizarding War, Death Eaters escaped justice by claiming they were under the Imperius Curse. Sirius Black, on the other hand, was imprisoned without trial while literally laughing in shock. If the Ministry had used Veritaserum, they could have sorted the guilty from the innocent in minutes. Instead, they relied on vibes and hysteria. Even during Harry's underage magic hearing, where the truth potion could have cleared him instantly, they didn't use it, probably because it would have ruined Fudge's agenda. The result? A justice system so broken it makes Azkaban look organized. Why Harry didn't just disguise himself during the 7 Potters. To move Harry safely from Privet Drive, the Order brewed Polyjuice potions so 6 volunteers could impersonate him, while the real Harry flew alongside them. Their logic? The Death Eaters won't know which Harry to attack. The flaw? They now have 7 targets instead of 1. A simpler plan would have been for Harry to take Polyjuice potion himself, disguise as a random muggle, and quietly leave in a car or train. The Death Eaters couldn't trace him because the Ministry was already compromised. But instead, they went with an airborne parade of Harry clones that immediately got people killed. Strategic brilliance at its peak, if your goal was maximum chaos and bird casualties. The Polyjuice potion voice problem. In the books, Polyjuice potion changes both appearance and voice. Harry and Ron, when transformed into Crabbe and Goyle, sound like Crabbe and Goyle. Simple enough. But the films didn't get the memo. In Chamber of Secrets, they keep their own voices because apparently magic stops at the vocal cords. Then, in Goblet of Fire, Barty Crouch Jr. impersonates Mad-Eye Moody with a perfectly matching voice. Later, Deathly Hallows. Part 1 reverts to the book Logic, with the disguised trio keeping their real voices again. So, depending on the movie, Polyjuice potion either rewrites your DNA or politely skips your throat. It's not a lore issue, it's a filmmaking one, but it creates one of the most inconsistent magical effects in the entire franchise. Why no one used Felix Felicis in the Battle of Hogwarts? Felix Felicis, Liquid Luck, is the potion that makes everything go your way. Harry uses it in Half-Blood Prince to extract Slughorn's horcrux memory, and the results are flawless. Naturally, you'd think Hogwarts would stockpile gallons of the stuff before the final battle. They didn't. Apparently, no one thought of handing out luck shots before facing an army of dark wizards and giant snakes. The brewing time is 6 months, yes, but that's hardly an excuse for a war that's been coming for over a year. Either the defenders forgot the most overpowered potion ever made, or Slughorn spent the entire siege conveniently out of ingredients. For a world obsessed with preparing for every eventuality, they really didn't prepare for this one. How Harry could safely hold the Sword of Gryffindor. The Sword of Gryffindor absorbs what makes it stronger, like basilisk venom. It's the key to destroying horcruxes because it's soaked with one of the deadliest substances known to magic. Yet Harry handles it with his bare hands multiple times and suffers 0 side effects. Basilisk venom is lethal on contact with the bloodstream, but apparently harmless if smeared on a sword hilt. The venom can melt a horcrux but can't irritate skin. Convenient. Unless the sword is also self-cleaning, the lack of reaction is a neat contradiction. Toxic enough to destroy fragments of souls, but not toxic enough to cause a paper-cut problem. The Time Turner Paradox in Cursed Child. Time Turners were once governed by strict magical laws. In Prisoner of Azkaban, Hermione's device could only move her a few hours backward. Dumbledore explicitly warned that even short jumps could have catastrophic side effects if misused. Later, all known Time Turners were destroyed during the battle at the Department of Mysteries, ending time travel altogether. That was the rule. Then Cursed Child came along and threw the rulebook straight out of the pensieve. Suddenly, a new prototype Time Turner appears that allows travel not just hours, but decades into the past, creating alternate timelines where history itself changes. The boys alter Cedric's fate, Voldemort survives, and reality resets multiple times, none of which fits the closed-loop logic that governed time travel in the books. The original series made it clear, time cannot be changed, only fulfilled. Yet the play treats time like a toy box with unlimited retrees. It's one of the most quietly devastating continuity breaks in the entire canon, turning Rowling's tightly bound timeline magic into a full-blown butterfly effect simulator. The implausible birth of Delphi. According to Cursed Child, Voldemort and Bellatrix Lestrange secretly had a daughter, Delphi, born shortly before the Battle of Hogwarts. The problem? Bellatrix was actively dueling, torturing, and terrorizing people throughout that same year. She tortured Hermione at Malfoy Manor, fought in the Battle of the 7 Potters, and never once acted even slightly pregnant. The timeline gives her maybe 9 months to carry and deliver a child without anyone, not even the Malfoys she lived with, noticing. It also demands that Voldemort, a man who viewed love and family as weaknesses, paused his war to start one. Nothing in the books, letters, or lore ever suggests such a thing could happen. Even in the play, characters react with disbelief because it makes no internal sense. For the story to hold, we'd have to assume an off-screen pregnancy, an unseen birth, and a collective case of wizarding amnesia. In short, the idea of Delphi's birth doesn't just stretch canon, it snaps it. Why the basilisk fang didn't destroy the horcrux inside Harry. In Chamber of Secrets, Harry is stabbed by a basilisk fang. The venom should destroy any horcrux it touches, confirmed later when the trio uses those same fangs to obliterate several of them. Yet, Harry's internal horcrux survives. Fawkes' tears cure the poison, but they shouldn't undestroy a horcrux once it's damaged. The logical outcome is that the horcrux should have died when Harry was bitten. Rowling never explains this, though fan theories abound. Some say Harry had to fully die for the horcrux to perish. Others argue Fawkes' healing tears repaired the host, but not the fragment. Whatever the case, the rules of horcrux destruction shift here faster than Snape's mood. How Ron and Hermione escape the Chamber of Secrets. In Deathly Hallows, Ron and Hermione return to the Chamber of Secrets to destroy Hufflepuff's cup using a basilisk fang. They get in easily enough. Ron mimics Harry's parcel tongue, and the door opens. The problem comes afterward. How did they get out? In Chamber of Secrets, Fawkes the Phoenix had to carry everyone up that massive vertical tunnel. By the time of the final book, Fawkes is long gone and no rope or ladder is mentioned. There's no spell for levitate us to the surface in the text either. Unless broomsticks spontaneously appeared down there, this is a pure narrative skip. Apparently, Rowling decided that logistics don't apply when romance is involved. One kiss and gravity politely stops existing. How Fred and George learned the Marauders map password. When the twins hand Harry the Marauders map, they already know the activation phrase. I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. But the map doesn't come with instructions, and its creators are long gone. Rowling later explained that the map recognized mischief and gave the boys hints until they guessed correctly. A magical interface tutorial, essentially. It's a neat patch, but it came after fans asked the question. In the books, there's no clue how two teenage pranksters cracked a security spell designed by 4 of the most talented students Hogwarts ever saw. Either the Weasley twins are geniuses, or the map's password protection was about as strong as a Hufflepuff lock. Why Voldemort never made his Death Eaters take the Unbreakable vow. The Unbreakable vow forces anyone who breaks it to die instantly. Voldemort, paranoid and power-hungry, could have used it to guarantee loyalty. He didn't. Instead, he relied on fear, torture, and the occasional murder to keep his army obedient. Given that betrayal nearly kills him multiple times, you'd think magical contracts might help. But Voldemort's ego doesn't allow him to believe anyone could betray him. He's convinced that fear alone will do the job. The irony is that it doesn't. Snape literally becomes a double agent under his nose. The Dark Lord could have weaponized binding magic, but instead trusted office politics, a managerial oversight that cost him everything. How the Azkaban escapees got their wands back. When witches and wizards are sentenced to Azkaban, their wands are snapped, destroyed beyond use. Yet when Bellatrix Lestrange and the other Death Eaters break out, they immediately start firing spells like they'd just left Ollivanders. There's no scene of them getting replacements and no explanation of how they found wands compatible with them again. In Harry Potter lore, a wand chooses the wizard, and using someone else's wand weakens the spell work. So either they all got very lucky at a secondhand wand shop, or the Ministry stored snapped wands in a drawer labeled just in case mass breakout. Neither option makes much sense, and it quietly undercuts the whole wand loyalty concept. How Hagrid flew to the hut on the rock. In Philosopher's Stone, Hagrid tells the Dursleys he flew to the island where Harry was hiding. The only problem? He can't. Brooms collapse under his weight. His words, not ours. And Sirius's motorbike isn't seen anywhere nearby. The Dursleys took the only boat to the island, so unless Hagrid arrived by swimming through a storm with an owl under one arm, we're missing a transport method. The most generous theory suggests a thestral carried him, invisible to Harry's eyes. But since thestrals weren't introduced until Book 5, it feels like another case of early series improvisation. He flew is probably shorthand for don't ask, just accept the magic. Why Dumbledore's portrait can give intelligent advice. Rowling later clarified that portraits are not the full souls of the dead, just enchanted echoes, imitating their subjects' personalities. They don't learn or think independently. So how does Dumbledore's painting in Half-Blood Prince give Snape complex instructions, react to new events, and offer genuine wisdom? The standard portrait enchantment shouldn't allow that level of awareness. Rowling retroactively explained that Dumbledore had the portrait painted a year before his death, and trained it by visiting daily, feeding it knowledge and personality traits. Convenient but unconvincing. A painted canvas shouldn't suddenly function like a magical backup drive for your consciousness. Apparently, death is only temporary if you've sat for a really good artist. Why Hogwarts never performed background checks. Hogwarts, the most prestigious magical school in Britain, apparently operates on a trust first, ask later hiring policy. Over the years, they've employed a Voldemort host, a Death Eater impersonating another teacher, and a celebrity conman who couldn't perform a single real spell. No one noticed. Professor Quirrell came back from traveling abroad with Voldemort literally attached to his skull, and Dumbledore just said, "Welcome back." Mad-Eye Moody? Actually Barty Crouch Jr. under Polyjuice potion. Still no vetting process. And Gilderoy Lockhart? His resume was basically self-published fanfiction. The Ministry can monitor underage wizards but not verify staff at a government-funded school. It's less magical education and more a case study in negligent recruitment. McGonagall's impossible timeline. Canon sources say Minerva McGonagall was born in 1935. That's fine, until the Fantastic Beasts films place her teaching at Hogwarts during the 1920s, a full decade before she existed. She even appears in flashbacks to 1910. This isn't creative license, it's mathematical chaos. Rowling tried to brush it off by saying timelines are flexible, but unless McGonagall mastered time travel before birth, it's simply a continuity error. Fans have tried to patch it with theories about an older relative sharing her name, but the film credits explicitly call her Minerva. In short, either McGonagall is immortal or Warner Brothers didn't check the wiki. The wizarding education problem. Between ages 11 and 17, students attend Hogwarts. Before that, no official schooling. After that, no wizarding university. Magical children are somehow expected to learn reading, writing, and math before age 11, usually taught by parents, many of whom work full-time. That's assuming their parents are literate. Muggleborns at least attend normal schools first, giving them a serious head start. Then, at 17, they graduate and immediately apply to the Ministry, because apparently higher education is for Muggles. The entire system relies on home tutoring, zero oversight, and a castle that tries to kill its pupils yearly. It's less an education model and more an endurance test. The Portkey problem. Portkeys are objects enchanted to instantly transport anyone touching them from one place to another. Simple enough until the series gives them completely inconsistent rules. In Goblet of Fire, the boot that takes Harry and the Weasleys to the Quidditch World Cup works only for a few seconds, one way and on a timer. Later, the Triwizard Cup is turned into a Portkey that not only activates immediately, but also brings Harry back to Hogwarts after Voldemort's resurrection. So, are Portkeys timed, single-use, bidirectional, or just whatever the plot needs that day? Rowling never defines the system, leaving Portkeys as magical Swiss Army knives, convenient, flexible, and logically incoherent. The Triwizard Tournament Spectator issue. The Triwizard Tournament was billed as the ultimate magical sporting event, yet only one of its 3 tasks could actually be watched. The first task, Dragons in an Arena, makes sense. The second takes place underwater, where the audience sees nothing but bubbles, and the third is in a hedge maze that blocks all visibility. Thousands of people show up just to stare at a lake or a wall of shrubbery. The only way this could be entertaining is if Ludo Bagman was giving live commentary through magical surveillance, something the books never confirm. Either the spectators had omniscient viewing spells, or they paid for the least eventful show since Quidditch Halftime. The Sorting Hat System. At age 11, children are sorted into 4 rigid categories that define their identity for life. Brave, Gryffindor, Clever, Ravenclaw, Ambitious, Slytherin, Loyal, Hufflepuff. The problem is that people aren't one-dimensional, and the system ensures they never get the chance to find out. It tells kids who they are before they've even hit puberty. Worse, half the school believes one house is basically evil. The result? A self-fulfilling prophecy of prejudice, rivalry, and yearly murder attempts. The Sorting Hat calls itself impartial, but let's be honest, it's been mentally profiling minors for centuries with the accuracy of a BuzzFeed quiz. The Alohomora oversight during Sirius Black's escape. When Sirius escapes Azkaban and sneaks into Hogwarts, the school goes into lockdown. Corridors are sealed, portraits are alert, and Dementors patrol the grounds. Yet not a single professor remembers that Alohomora, the unlocking charm taught to first years, exists. Hermione mastered it before she even took exams. Sirius, an accomplished wizard, would have no trouble opening locked doors, unless the professors enchanted every lock to resist every unlocking spell, which is never stated. This was magical security theater, the kind that looks impressive but can be undone by a student with basic spell knowledge. Hogwarts, where even the emergency plans need emergency plans. Ron's hand-me-down wand. Wands choose their wizards, reacting to personal compatibility and magical alignment. So when Ron inherits his brother Charlie's old wand, it shouldn't work properly, and it doesn't. But the real question is, why would the Weasleys do this at all? A mismatched wand can hinder spellcasting, and they know this. The books use the hand-me-down wand to show the family's poverty, but in practical terms, it makes no sense. Charlie could have kept his wand for sentimental reasons, or the family could have asked Dumbledore for help acquiring a proper one. Instead, Ron starts his Hogwarts journey with malfunctioning magical equipment, like showing up to school with a broken laptop because it builds character. Dennis Creevey and Hogsmeade too early. Hogsmeade visits are restricted to students in their third year or older. Yet, in Order of the Phoenix, Dennis Creevey, a second year, attends the first Dumbledore's army meeting in the Hogshead Inn. The book doesn't explain how he got there. There's no secret passage, no permission slip, and no invisibility cloak in sight. Dennis simply appears, as if the rules took a day off. Either Rowling forgot his age, or he's the most talented escape artist Hogwarts ever produced. In any case, it's a clear timeline error, and one that makes Professor McGonagall's strict supervision policy look more like a polite suggestion. Why Voldemort didn't retrieve the prophecy himself? In Order of the Phoenix, Voldemort manipulates Harry into entering the Department of Mysteries to collect a prophecy that only those involved can touch. If anyone else handles it, it shatters. Fair enough, except Voldemort is one of the people involved. He could have walked in, grabbed it, and walked out. By the time Harry arrives, Death Eaters already control the room, so there's no reason Voldemort couldn't have done it earlier. The supposed risk was revealing himself, but that concern disappears when he shows up minutes later to duel Dumbledore in front of the entire Ministry. In short, the Dark Lord orchestrated an elaborate teenage scavenger hunt for an object he could have collected on his lunch break. The Hogwarts calendar error. Every school year, Hogwarts students board the train on September 1st and begin classes the next morning. Every time, that date conveniently falls on a Monday. Except, of course, it can't. Real-world calendars don't work like that. Across 6 school years, September 2nd lands on every day of the week at least once. But never mind that, because Hogwarts runs on narrative convenience, not lunar cycles. Rowling never assigns firm years to the events, which makes tracking dates impossible. It's a harmless oversight, but one that quietly confirms that wizards probably don't teach arithmetic for a reason. The Troll in the Dungeon Dilemma. In Philosopher's Stone, Quirrell bursts into the Great Hall shouting about a troll in the dungeon. The teachers promptly send students back to their common rooms. Logical, except for the Slytherins whose dorms are in the dungeons. That means the staff just directed an entire house straight toward the danger. The obvious fix would have been to send them anywhere else. But Rowling hadn't yet established Slytherin's location when writing the first book. Once she placed their common room under the castle in Book 2, the troll incident became a retroactive death trap. It's one of the earliest, simplest, and most undeniable continuity errors in the entire series.